Hello and welcome, or welcome back to Language, Culture, and Dr. Lou. And today I'd like to talk to you about some words that have really strange origins, really weird origins. So yeah, the etymology of each of these words is surprisingly interesting to me. So uh, let's have at it. And so first up, we've got avocado. And that word, it's funny, a lot of um, English speakers will know that this word came into English from Spanish, right? And that's not the more amazing part for me. The amazing part for me, the part that's surprising, is that this word, well, was not completely invented in Spanish. It came from an Aztec language. Uh, and the original meaning in the Aztec language was testicle. Yeah. And I don't know, maybe it's because the Aztecs found these fruits and found between the texture of them and the shape of them, maybe other things, they found them a lot like testicles. And what's kind of funny about this is that if you know, well, avocados grow in pairs. So there's two of them at a time. So that to me, yeah, that really backs up why the Aztec language would have used a word that means testicle when describing these fruit. Anyway, so that's, yeah, avocado. Turns out once upon a time, well, before it came into English, it was all about testicles. Anyway, and so the word clue is the second word on that list. And I don't know, you might not have known how this came from Greek mythology. Um, and the Greek word clue was, well, spelled Clew, clue. And this is all from the story of the labyrinth, where you had um, the guy with the bull head, the Minotaur there. He had trapped Theseus. It will yeah in the labyrinth, and he had sort of imprisoned him there in the labyrinth that's hard to find your way out of and all of that. And so the clue in question was the ball of yarn that Theseus used to find his way out of the labyrinth. By that I mean uh, you put some yarn down here and trail it behind you, so that way you know everywhere you've been and where you haven't been and all that. So clever way to find his way out of the labyrinth. But the word clue, yeah, at the time it was a ball of yarn. And from there, the word clue came to mean some guidance towards the truth. So guidance in finding your way. Um, and then it got expanded that to be, yeah, again, anything that provides a little guidance in finding out the truth of something. And that's what we know it to mean today, is a clue. But yeah, it came from Theseus being trapped in the labyrinth, and yeah, it's the word came very far away in time, and turns out it means nothing like it originally meant. But it turns out we owe this word to Greek mythology, and it's about a ball of yarn. And it reminds me of when people use breadcrumbs to try to find their way back. Anyway, that kind of a deal. So that's the history of the word clue. And now, what about hooligan? This word hooligan, um, Sadly, the origins of this word are pretty much in an ethnic slur, right? And it was an ethnic slur against the Irish, of course, and because it was a reference to a raucous Irish family named the Houlihan family, not hooligan, but Houlihan, but either way. And this family was they were even mentioned in a song in the 1890s. So we know this goes back to the 19th century, at least the late 19th century, at least. And like I said, it's an ethnic slur against the Irish. So who came up with it? That's right, it was the English. Yeah, and so that to me, of course, hooligan, we have lots of words in English that are pretty pejorative, pretty mean thing to call people resembling hooligan. We've got hoodlum, thug, ruffian, all of these, and hooligan is one of them. So it's not too surprising to me that it came from a slur because it still means something um pretty negative. But yeah, so I recommend not using the word hooligan unless you're using it as part of your own Irish pride. That's fine. That's fine. And so yeah, and it's also totally unsurprising that who would come up with this slur against the Irish. That would be the English once upon a time. Anyway, that's a little upsetting, but interesting nonetheless. And now the word nice. And this word I talked about a few months ago when I did a video about semantic shift. And that's the process by which words can change meaning over time. And nice, the English word nice is a good example of this because the word nice came into English long time ago from Old France in the 13th century. So we're talking the 1200s, and so a long time ago. And it and that French word, of course, came from Latin, a word in Latin. And now that Latin word, and then brought into Old French, did not mean nice as we think of it today, like kind, etc. No, it meant if someone was called nice, they were being called ignorant or foolish. So if you're describing somebody as being nice, you're calling them a fool, pretty much. And yeah, and so it's amazing. And this is, as far as semantic shift goes, this is an example of amelioration, where the meaning of a word gets a lot more positive over time. And there is a connection here, a direct connection. The whole foolish and ignorant, the whole someone's a fool if they're being nice. It came at one point as you could call somebody nicely dressed if they were way ridiculously overdressed, way ridiculously overdone, overdressed. That was considered foolish, and so they were nicely dressed. Now, as it came on to being something nicer, then if somebody is dressed looking really good and all that, nice and spick and span look to them, we can call them nicely dressed. But see how that means something very different now? But yeah, so that's what nice people were way back when, is fools. And yeah, very ignorant folks. So yeah, I'm happy this word just means something good these days. But yeah, so that's nice for you. It was not always a nice word to call somebody, right? It was just about being foolish. And so another word that starts with N that has an origin that I was totally unaware of is nightmare. And So I know both of the paintings I have up here are depicting Mare as a horse, right? And that's often done in the visual arts, nightmares that we end up mare as in a horse, but that's really misleading because a mare in this context was not about a horse at all. A mare was, you see on the one woman's chest, the one nearest to me who's having a nightmare right now. The mare is the little female goblin who is sitting on her chest and pretty much suffocating her a little bit and inspiring negative thoughts, inspiring scary thoughts, and all that. So that was the mare, and the nightmare, of course, she comes at night and all that. So yeah, that's where nightmare is from. It has nothing to do with horses. It's all about this weird little goblin who would inspire all your nightmares. Well, they're practically suffocating you as they're sitting on your chest while you're sleeping. And this to me is really fitting because that all sounds very nightmarish to me, right? And so it seems, yeah, pretty fitting. And oh, and there's also a mythological creature called an asp, uh, who that little goblin there reminds me of. Maybe that's an asp who's causing all those nightmares. But anyway, yeah, a mare was not a horse. It was that little goblin who was scaring the crap out of you while you're asleep. Well, not literally, but still. And mortgage. I love the etymology of this word because if you speak French, then it's pretty funny. The first part of the word mort, M-O-R-T, that means death. And the second part, gage, is a pledge. So if we put that together, mortgage, it means death pledge. And that's scary, right? Because the mortgages, well, they do tend to last a very long time. But it's not about if the person who takes out the mortgage is going to die or not. It has nothing to do with human death or anything. So that has nothing to do with the idiom of to buy the farm, right? That's not what we're talking about here. The thing about what is what death is involved in this would be the death of the debt, pretty much. So that's where mortgage comes from. It means the debt itself ends, or rather goes dead, when after you have satisfied it by repaying all the money that you owe them, of course, with interest naturally, or if a bank forecloses on the property and takes it back through foreclosure, either way, the debt goes away and the debt is dead. So that's where mortgage comes from. It's a death pledge. And I really do enjoy that. Yeah, that it comes to mean something pretty scary because mortgages, well, pretty overwhelming to put yourself into that amount of debt. And so, yeah, a mortgage is just a death pledge, it turns out. But don't worry, it's not you who's going to die, it's the debt, which will eventually die, either being repaid or by the banks just snatching the property back, either way. So that's a death pledge, aka mortgage. And so the next word also starts with M and it's muscle. And now the word muscle comes from Latin. I have the Latin word down there, musculus, um, which that word in Latin meant a little mouse. And that to me is super funny, the idea, because of course, who spoke Latin, that would be the ancient Romans and other folks in their empire. Anyway, so it's funny to me to think of ancient Romans once upon a time, uh, seeing their muscles as though they were little mice running around under the skin, right? And that to me is, yeah, maybe that's a imagery of horror movies, right? Anyway, but yeah, that's where the word muscle comes from, is a little mouse, because it's almost like there's a little mouse under here doing the job for you when you're using your muscles. So yeah, I thought that was really funny. And and to me, it's funny that the word muscle, this is a cognate word that exists in a lot of other languages too, like especially in the Romance languages, of course. So it's not unique to English. And it's funny, but in every one of them, it finds its root in the Latin word for little mouse. And it's funny how we lose this over time when we forget where the word came from. Uh, it's easy to forget, but it's so much funnier when you think of the meaning of the original word, and it's a thing of horror films to have little mice running around all under your skin, right? Anyway, so sorry to scare you, but oh, now the word robot. To me, this is really funny because robot is something of technology, I always find it funny when real technologies that end up getting used can first be found in science fiction work. That's a lot of times what we get. We see these things happening in science fiction um, long, yeah, long before they come out into actual applied sciences and are really used. And so the word robot comes from this Czech word that I have in italics, and it looks like robota, but I have no idea how to pronounce Czech. So that's how it's spelled, at least. And what it means is forced labor, which I think is pretty appropriate because, I have a robot vacuum so that it will do the work for me. I'm forcing it to do the labor for me. Anyway, that is funny. And yeah, it's also because it came from a 1920 sci-fi play written by Karl Čapek. But as far as I know, he's not the one who invented the word himself, because his brother was also a writer. And one time, Karl Čapek, he admitted, well, he made clear to other people that it was actually his brother who had invented the word, but we just all got to know it from this play. And yeah, it was about the robots in question. It was about creating synthetic humans. So these synthetic humans, then maybe you can make them do all the labor for you instead. So that's kind of nice. I like the idea of using robots to do labor instead of beasts of burden or human servants or slaves or anything. So, yeah. Well, originally the robots in question were synth synthetic humans manufactured, and most likely for the purpose of doing forced labor. And I always find it interesting when we get real tech terms from sci-fi instead of the other way around. And oh, shampoo. This is an interesting word because did you know this word is from Hindi? Yeah, English got this word from Hindi, and where the word we got from Hindi meant massage, to massage. So it was a verb. It was not the noun. It's not about the actual product, the so-called shampoo. It's about an action. And so to massage, and where did Hindi get that word from? It has a Sanskrit root in it. And the Sanskrit root is about applying pressure and kneading and soothing, which to me that makes a lot of sense how it would come from that and turn into massage, right? Because that's a lot of what we're doing when we're massaging. And it wasn't until it was in English and for a long time that we expanded the definition of shampoo, not to just mean massage, but to mean to wash your hair. I think that was in, yeah, 1860. The definition got extended to mean to wash your hair. And it wasn't until the 20th century, like the 1950s, that the definition was further extended, meaning to wash carpets or other materials, but it all came from the idea of to massage, which to me makes a lot of sense because when you're shampooing your hair, well, when I'm shampooing my hair, I am kind of massaging my head at the time a little bit. That's why it can be a little comforting. But yeah, so that's where shampoo comes from. It from comes from a Hindi word for massage. And so we didn't even turn it into what it means today for a very long time afterwards. And now we can even apply it to the products that we use to wash our hair and to wash carpets and all that. So we turned it, took that verb, expanded it, changed the definition a little bit, and then turned it into a noun. Um, And so, yeah, so there you go. That's shampoo. And this next one is, I think, the most interesting one here, in my opinion, anyway. That's kind of why I decided to save it for last. You might know that the word sandwich, these things we eat with two slices of bread and stuff in between sandwich. Um, they came from somebody who was known as Lord Sandwich. He was the first Earl of Sandwich, which of course was in England in the 18th century. And the funny part of this is that this is about a rich guy's gambling problem, actually, turns out. Yeah. So why did he start ordering things to be brought to him to eat them between two slices of bread? Because he was a gambler and he didn't want to leave his precious gambling table. He's got a card game going on or whatever the game might be he's gambling at. And he doesn't want to have to leave that table to go eat somewhere. So he had servants bring him uh, his meats and other things between two layers of bread. Okay. And then after that, we had other gamblers, other people gambling. They were asking the servants for, oh, bring me something just like sandwich. So just like sandwich, referring to Lord Sandwich, okay. And eventually, instead of just like sandwich, they just called it a sandwich. Bring me a sandwich. And there was born the name of this food that we still have and eat to this day. And yeah, and so it was all about a bunch of people who didn't want to have to step away from the gambling table. They didn't want to have to, um, well, leave the game and leave any chance to win any money behind. So that's where the sandwich comes in. And so, but honestly, I have to tell you that there are some people who had a little more respect for the guy and his work in politics. He was a nobleman and a politician. So those people might say, oh, he only ate sandwiches so that he wouldn't have to leave his desk so he could attend to his matters of politics. But I really like the other theory better, where it's all about somebody not wanting to step away from gambling because that makes a lot of sense to me. Gambling can be very addictive. And luckily, they found a way to feed themselves while they're taking care of their other vice. But anyway, yeah, that's where sandwich comes from. Is this guy Sandwich who was a gambler and didn't want to leave the gambling table? So yeah, that's that's it for today. And thank you for watching these. Please do give this video a thumbs up. And please do, if you know of any other words with pretty surprising origins, I would love to hear about them in the comments. That would be just fantastic. And yeah, so if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please do subscribe. It would go pretty far away, and I would appreciate it so much. And yeah, thanks again for watching, and I will catch you around next time. Bye bye.